Most people think they understand fear. They think they felt it during a bad storm, or a close call on the highway, or when something moves outside their tent at night. But what happened to me in the Tom Miner Basin, that wasn't fear. That was something older. Something that crawled straight into my bones and hasn't left since the night it found me. I'm telling this exactly as it happened, because if you ever set foot in those woods, you need to understand what's out there. My name is Evan Mark Reddington. I'm 34 years old, and I've lived in Livingston, Park County, Montana most of my life. I've been a Montana fish, wildlife and parks ranger for almost a decade, long enough to know every sound the forest makes, every predator's habits, every bluff charge from an angry elk or confused young grizzly. I'm not the jumpy type. I've done night patrols in blizzards, tracked wounded bears through canyons, and once pulled a cougar off a rancher's dog. But none of that prepared me for October 14, 2022. It was supposed to be a routine evening patrol, one last sweep of the Tom Miner Basin before temperatures dropped into the 20s again. The area had seen 3 reports in a week of elk carcasses found half dragged off game trails, torn open in ways that didn't match wolves or bears. Ranchers nearby complained that their cattle were acting skittish, refusing to graze near the tree line. The kind of thing that usually points to a new predator passing through, or a sick one acting erratically. My job was simple: check trail cameras, log tracks, verify if we needed to bring in specialists. Easy. I clocked out from the Livingston office just after 4:30 p.m., grabbed extra batteries for my Petzl Tactica headlamp, loaded my standard patrol gear, bear spray, first aid, field notebook, my Glock 20, and drove my assigned 2016 F-150 Ranger truck up toward the basin. By the time I reached the first camera station, daylight was already thinning. Mid-October up here, sunset comes fast. The air sat at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, the kind of cold where your breath instantly fogs the beam of your light. There was a thin crust of snow covering everything: downed logs, sagebrush, animal trails. The wind was pushing through the trees at maybe 10-15 miles an hour, carrying that dry pine smell that always hits just before a deeper freeze. Normal. Completely normal. And then, not normal at all. The silence crept up slowly. At first I just noticed there weren't any elk bugles. Usually you can hear at least one this time of year echoing across the basin. Then I realized I hadn't heard a single raven since parking the truck. No squirrels chattering. No rustle of voles under the snow. Just the wind. When I turned off the engine, the quiet felt wrong. Too heavy. Too still. I told myself it was the cold front. Animals bed down early when storms are brewing. But even then, you hear something. Anything. I stepped out of the truck and felt that same pressure in the air I've only ever felt before lightning strikes, an electric heaviness, like the forest was holding its breath. The first sign came maybe 20 minutes later, while I was swapping SD cards on camera 3. Something sharp and sour drifted on the wind. Not a carcass. I know that smell. This was different, musky, like wet fur that hadn't dried in days, mixed with something rotting. It hit the back of my throat so hard it made me swallow twice. I paused, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved. No shapes. No shadows crossing the snow. But the smell didn't fade. I tried to shrug it off. Predators drag kills all the time. Could have been a coyote cache nearby, or a young grizzly that hadn't learned to cover its leftovers. I told myself all the logical things a ranger tells himself when the woods start whispering the wrong way. But then I found the tracks. Between camera 3 and the creek bed, in a strip of melting snow, something had walked through. The prints were long, at least 14 inches, and narrow, more like a huge canid than anything else. But the spacing didn't make sense. The stride was over 6 feet, too long for any wolf. And the impressions were deep, whatever made them was heavy. I knelt down and ran my gloved hand along one print. The snow around the edges had melted slightly, like the thing that stepped there had body heat that radiated enough to soften the ice. Wolves don't do that. Bears don't do that. I straightened up, listening. The wind had died completely. The forest wasn't just quiet, it was suffocatingly silent. No movement. No distant knocks. Nothing. Just stillness. That was when the feeling hit me, the unmistakable prickling on the back of my neck. The sense that eyes were on me. Watching. Measuring. If you've ever felt watched in the woods, really watched, if you've ever had that cold pulse hit your spine like someone stepped out of the darkness behind you, then you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, hit that like button, because what happened next is the reason I still can't walk into those trees alone. I forced myself to turn slowly, shining my flashlight between the lodgepole pines. White snow. Dark trunks. Nothing. I exhaled. And that's when I heard it. Clear as day. A heavy, wet dragging noise, like something being pulled across frozen ground. Far off at first, maybe 100 yards. Then another sound layered over it, something snapping a branch thick as a broom handle. My muscles locked. My breath fogged in front of me. The dragging continued, slow and deliberate, not rushed, not panicked. Just, steady. Predators don't drag carcasses like that unless they're moving them to a safe place to eat. But nothing about the pace made sense. It wasn't struggling. It wasn't working. It was just pulling, effortless. I swallowed hard and raised my Glock, thumbed the flashlight attachment, and aimed toward the noise. The beam cut a white tunnel through the dark. The dragging stopped. The silence deepened into something suffocating. Something wrong enough that even my heartbeat felt too loud. I took one step back. Another. Then I saw them. Eyes. Not low to the ground like a bear's. Not the scattered glint of a deer herd. These were 7 feet up, perfectly still, reflecting amber against my light. They didn't blink. They didn't flinch. They just stared at me from between the pines, impossibly tall, unblinking, aware. My throat tightened so much I couldn't breathe. "That's impossible," I whispered. Maybe I didn't even say it out loud. Maybe I just thought it, desperate to make sense of the shape behind those eyes. But deep down, something inside me already knew. That wasn't a bear. And whatever it was, it had just stopped dragging its kill because it had found something else to focus on. Me. And that's when everything went wrong. The moment those eyes locked onto me, everything in my body screamed to run, but I couldn't. My boots felt rooted to the snow, my breath stuck halfway up my throat. The flashlight beam shook in my hands, scattering across the trunks, catching just enough of the thing's outline to make my stomach twist. It wasn't moving, but I knew it was deciding something. Measuring me the same way a wolf sizes up a deer before committing. Then the sound came back, not the dragging, but something worse. A low, drawn-out growl, deep enough that I felt it reverberate through my ribs. It wasn't loud. That almost made it more terrifying. It was controlled, deliberate, like it wanted me to know exactly how close it was to closing the distance. The smell hit next. Wet fur and something rank, something half-rotten, like meat left in a warm garage. It rolled over me in a wave so thick it made my eyes water. A metallic taste crept into my mouth, and I had to swallow hard to keep down the bile rising in my throat. My fingers tightened on the grip of my Glock, and I whispered to myself, "It's just a bear. A big, weird bear." But the lie had no weight. Bears don't stand at 7 feet without shifting. They don't stare like that, focused, calculating. They don't go completely still when spotted. And they don't drag an elk like it weighs nothing more than a sleeping bag. The creature stepped forward. Not much. Maybe a foot. But the snow under it compressed with a heavy crunch, and that sound snapped me out of my paralysis. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own boot. The light jittered, catching a glimpse of its shoulders, massive and sloped, covered in dark coarse fur that bristled as it moved. Its head was unmistakably canine, but wrong. Too wide. Too tall. The snout elongated like a wolf's, but with a jaw that opened just a little too much when it growled again. The silence that followed was absolute. The kind that squeezes into your ears, making your heartbeat sound like a drum. No wind. No branches moving. Not even the faint hum of insects. Just me and that thing watching each other in a dead, frozen moment. Then it inhaled, a long, slow drag of air through its nose, like it was smelling me. My heart slammed so hard I felt it thudding in my neck. Cold sweat slid down my back despite the freezing air. My hands trembled so violently the gun's barrel wavered. "Don't come closer," I managed, though my voice cracked pathetically. It blinked. Just once. A sliding, deliberate motion that somehow made everything worse. Then it stepped fully into the open. Even in the narrow beam, I saw enough to wipe away every last shred of rational explanation. It stood upright on 2 legs, shoulders wider than any man I'd ever seen, arms hanging down with hands, actual hands, ending in curved black claws. Its fur was patchy in places, matted in others, glistening with what I thought was melted snow until the smell told me it wasn't just water. Its chest rose and fell in slow, steady breaths like it wasn't remotely threatened by me or my weapon. Its eyes glowed a cold amber, almost reflective like a wolf's, but too intelligent. Too focused. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This can't be real." But reality didn't care what I believed. The thing took another step, closing 5 feet like nothing. It was close enough now that the flashlight beam sharpened across its muzzle, catching the outline of long teeth, far too long, and a faint shimmer of saliva as it exhaled. My legs finally obeyed me. I staggered back, slipping on the crusted snow, my breath ragged and uneven. The creature's ears twitched, tracking the sound of my boots scraping the ground. It tilted its head, the motion uncanny, disturbingly human. I raised the Glock with both hands to steady myself. My voice came out hoarse. "Back off." It didn't. It didn't charge either. It paced sideways instead, slow steps, like it was circling me without committing. Snow crunched beneath it with each measured step. The sound filled the air in the absence of everything else. My pulse hammered, and I could feel my legs threatening to give out. I'd faced down predators before, but nothing that moved with this kind of intent. This wasn't panic or territorial defense. This was assessment. It wanted to know what I was going to do. When its shape slipped partially behind a tree, instinct took over. I turned and fled. The first 3 steps were clumsy, my boots punching through thin crusts of ice, my breath tearing out in white clouds. I didn't dare look back. I could feel the weight of its gaze burning into my spine, but I couldn't stop. Couldn't. The forest amplified every sound. My heartbeat echoed in my ears. My breathing turned ragged. Snow crunched violently beneath me with each frantic step. But then a new sound joined the chaos, the heavy, rhythmic padding of something huge moving parallel to me through the trees. It wasn't running. It didn't need to. It kept pace easily. I flashed the beam sideways for a split second and immediately wished I hadn't. The creature's form appeared between the pines, gliding effortlessly, its arms swinging, its head low and fixed on me. Amber eyes pierced from the shadows like burning coals. Adrenaline nearly made my knees buckle. I pushed harder, stumbling toward the faint glint of metal through the trees, my truck. My breath ripped through my lungs, sharp and burning. My skin prickled with the cold and the terror. The taste of copper filled my mouth as I gasped, my throat raw. Every instinct screamed to keep going. But the creature had closed the gap. I didn't hear it charge. I didn't hear branches break or snow scatter. One moment it was pacing me. The next, something massive landed in the snow behind me with a thud so powerful it vibrated the ground under my boots. I spun, flashlight and Glock both aimed. The beam caught it mid-step. It was closer than ever. Close enough that I saw steam rising off its body in the cold air. Close enough that I saw the gleam of wetness on its claws. Close enough that its breath fogged the beam of my flashlight, drifting toward me in slow, ghostly tendrils. And in that frozen half-second where our eyes met again, I knew it wasn't curious anymore. It had made a decision. I turned and sprinted for the truck with everything I had left. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. My boots slipped on the icy patches. The creature's footsteps thundered behind me, fast now, no more testing, no more pacing. It was coming. Really coming. The F-150 was only 20 yards away when the growl tore through the woods, a feral, primal roar that shattered the silence and ripped straight through me. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. I could feel it closing in. And I knew, without doubt, that if I stumbled even once, I'd never make it to that truck alive. I don't remember making a conscious decision to scream, but something tore out of my throat as I sprinted the last few yards toward the truck. My keys were already in my hand, clenched so tight the metal edges cut into my palm. The creature's footsteps grew louder, massive, pounding impacts that shook the frozen soil. I could feel the vibration through my boots. 10 yards. 5. My glove slipped on the door handle. For a split second my heart stopped. The cold metal was slick with frost and sweat, and my hand wouldn't grip. Behind me, another roar exploded through the trees, this one sharper, like it was done waiting. I ripped the door open just as something cracked through the branches behind me. I didn't have time to climb in fully. I dove, half falling into the driver's seat, twisting to yank the door shut. The moment I slammed it, a heavy impact shook the entire truck. The creature had reached me. The door buckled inward slightly, the metal groaning, but it held. Barely. I jammed the key into the ignition with shaking hands. My breath came in hard, sharp bursts. The engine sputtered, just once, then caught. The headlights flared across the empty trail ahead. Something scraped across the side of the truck. Not claws tapping. Not scratching. Dragging. Like it was feeling along the surface. I threw the truck into reverse without looking. I didn't want to see it. Didn't want its eyes to be the last thing burned into my mind if I died here. My hands shook violently on the wheel as the tires spun on the icy soil before gaining traction. The truck lurched backward. A dark blur slammed against the tailgate. I couldn't stop myself. I looked in the rearview mirror. It was there, hunched, shoulders rising and falling with slow, powerful breaths. Its head tilted slightly as it pressed one massive hand to the tailgate. The claws dug into the metal like it was soft clay. The brake lights caught its features perfectly. The long snout, the glistening teeth, the eyes that reflected the red glow like molten amber. Then it did something I'll never forget. It grinned. Not a snarl, not a threat display. A grin. As if amused by my attempt to escape. I slammed the gear into drive and floored it. The truck fishtailed before straightening as I tore down the narrow service road. Branches slapped the sides, snow spraying up in sheets. My breath shook in my chest, each inhale sharp and metallic tasting. I forced myself not to look back again. But the sound came anyway. Heavy, rhythmic impacts behind me. It was running after the truck. I tightened my hands around the wheel until my knuckles ached. Come on, I whispered to the truck, to myself, to anything listening. The road ahead curved left, narrow and uneven. If I took it too fast, I'd slide into the ravine. If I slowed, the creature would be on me again. Another thud hit the rear panel. The truck jolted. I heard metal crunch. It was gaining. I pushed the accelerator harder. The engine whined in protest. Wind whipped across the windshield, snowflakes blurring the road. My heartbeat thundered so loud it drowned out almost everything else, except the creature's pursuit. Then the noise changed. The pounding footsteps vanished. Silence, except for the engine. I didn't dare believe it. Not yet. My eyes flicked to the mirror. Nothing. The road stretched behind me in the red glow of the taillights, empty. My relief lasted maybe 3 seconds. To my right, through the passenger window, a shadow buzzed from the tree line, running parallel to me. Its outline flashed in and out of view between the trunks. It was fast, far faster than anything that size should be. Jesus. I slammed the wheel left to avoid it as it veered closer, almost brushing the truck. Its hand slapped the side panel, leaving a long dented streak that screeched like tearing metal. The truck skidded across the icy trail. I wrestled the steering wheel, heart hammering against my ribs. My mouth filled with the metallic taste of fear, thick enough I almost gagged. The creature fell back for a moment, then surged forward again, only now it wasn't running upright. It dropped onto all fours and accelerated with terrifying ease. Its limbs moved in a blur, claws raking up snow as it propelled itself forward like a nightmare fusion of wolf and man. I took another sharp turn, one I knew well. The trail narrowed here, winding between two massive pines. The truck barely fit through in daylight. At night, with adrenaline shaking my entire body, it felt impossible. But the creature wasn't slowing. It lunged. A massive impact struck the bed of the truck. The back end fishtailed wildly. My shoulder slammed into the door. Pain shot down my arm. I gripped the wheel, fighting the skid. For a moment, the truck drifted sideways. I thought I was dead. Then the tires gripped. The truck straightened. The creature wasn't done. It leapt again, landing so close I felt the entire vehicle tilt for a heartbeat. Its claws raked across the rear window, the sound shrill and violent. Thin white lines carved through the glass but didn't break it. My mind flashed with images of it smashing through, pulling me out through the shattered window, dragging me into the trees. The thought alone jolted a surge of adrenaline through me. I floored it. The engine screamed. Snow kicked up in a storm behind me. The creature lunged once more, but this time the truck had too much momentum. It fell back, one claw scraping the bumper before disappearing into the darkness behind a swell of snow. I didn't stop. Didn't slow. Didn't breathe. Not until I reached the fork in the service road where the forest thinned enough for moonlight to finally pierce through the branches. My lungs felt raw. My hands were shaking so hard the wheel vibrated. I swallowed hard, trying to stabilize my breathing, but the air kept coming in short, panicked bursts. I turned off the headlights for a moment. The forest looked back. I saw nothing moving. No sound. No amber eyes in the dark. But I knew it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I pressed the gas again, heading toward the old maintenance shed, a small metal structure used for storing tools and chainsaws. It was the nearest place with any kind of barrier I could use. A building. Walls. Anything that wasn't thin truck glass between me and that thing. My hands trembled as I turned toward the shed road. But halfway there, a thought cut through the fear like a knife. It didn't stop chasing me because I got away. It stopped because it wanted me to go somewhere else. That realization followed me all the way to the shed, sitting heavy in my chest like a second heartbeat. It was hunting me. And I had just driven exactly where it wanted. By the time I reached the maintenance shed, my hands were stiff from gripping the wheel, my forearms trembling with leftover adrenaline. The building stood at the end of a narrow spur road, just a small, rectangular metal structure with a roll-up door and a single side entrance. I pulled up close, headlights washing pale yellow across the rippled steel. The shed looked flimsy, suddenly much smaller than I remembered, like something a good shove could collapse. But it was all I had. I cut the engine. The sudden silence made my ears ring. For a long moment, I stayed in the cab, listening. The only sound was the ticking of the cooling engine and my own pulse thudding in my throat. Nothing else. No footsteps. No growls. That terrified me more than hearing it. Creatures that big aren't silent unless they want to be. I forced myself to move. My legs shook as I climbed out of the truck, my boots crunching softly on the thin snow. The air had dropped several degrees, and every breath felt crisp, sharp. The flashlight beam jittered on the ground as I swung it toward the tree line. Nothing. Still nothing. I backed toward the shed door, fumbling with the key. The lock stuck once, twice, before finally giving with a soft metallic click. I shoved the door open and slipped inside, slamming it shut behind me. The darkness swallowed me instantly until I thumbed on the headlamp. Bare metal walls. The smell of oil and cold steel. A row of shelves stacked with toolboxes. A broken snowblower in the corner. The shed felt cramped, claustrophobic, but it was a barrier, thin, but better than none. I exhaled shakily and pressed my back against the door. The Glock felt small in my hand, almost useless. My breath fogged in front of me. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, very faintly, something crunched outside. The kind of sound you only hear when something heavy steps onto crusted snow. I froze. Another step. Slow. Measured. It circled the building. The metal walls carried the vibrations, subtle but unmistakable. Each step was deliberate, like it was walking the perimeter, testing, analyzing, waiting for a reaction. I forced myself not to move, not even to breathe loudly. A soft scrape brushed against the siding. A claw? A hand? The sound traveled along the wall like the creature was dragging something lightly across it. The shed suddenly felt too thin. Too exposed. My heartbeat pounded, loud enough that I was sure it could hear. Sweat slid down my back despite the freezing air. My palms were slick on the gun's grip. Then the footsteps stopped, right outside the door. Silence filled the space. A thick, suffocating quiet where even the air seemed to hold still. I didn't dare look through the small window beside me. Then something heavy pressed against the door. The metal bulged inward a fraction, groaning softly. I raised the Glock, hands trembling so hard I could barely keep the sight steady. "Don't," I whispered. "Don't you push that." For a moment, the pressure stayed. Then it released. Footsteps resumed, slower this time, circling back toward the rear of the shed. I sagged against the wall, breath hitching, throat tight with fear. This wasn't attack behavior, not yet. This was stalking. It knew exactly where I was, exactly how fragile the shelter was, and it wasn't rushing. It was in control. Minutes passed, though they felt like hours. I stayed near the center of the shed, headlamp pointed at the door. Every small noise, wind rustling the metal, the old building creaking as it cooled, made my nerves jolt. Then came the second sound. A faint thump, above me. My heart stopped. Another thump. Heavier. Snow slid off the roof, drifting past the window in pale sheets. It was walking on top of the shed. The metal ceiling dipped slightly with each step, the thin support beams creaking under its weight. I held my breath, staring upward as dust rained down from the seams. The creature paced, slow and predatory, its weight evenly distributed like it was testing for weak points. I backed toward the far corner, gun raised, praying, literally praying, it wouldn't collapse the roof. The pacing stopped. Silence again. The kind that claws at your sanity. Then, tap. Right above me. A single, deliberate tap of claw on metal. Like it knew exactly where I stood. I almost fired upward out of pure panic. My breath shook uncontrollably, my heart stuttering. I stepped sideways as quietly as I could, placing distance between myself and that point. The creature moved too, matching my position. One step. Two. Heavy. Controlled. It was tracking me through the roof. I felt like a mouse under a cat, waiting for the paw to strike. The shed groaned as the weight shifted forward. I aimed upward again, finger tightening on the trigger. A loud crack echoed across the roof. Not metal bending, branches snapping outside. The creature paused. Slowly, its weight shifted away, heading toward the far edge of the roof. I swallowed hard, chest vibrating with silent tremors. Then it jumped down. The impact shook the ground so hard tools rattled on the shelves. A deep vibration rolled through the floor. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from shouting. Its footsteps circled again, faster this time. More agitated. A low rumble bled through the walls, like a dog barely holding back violence. Then, the handle on the shed door rattled. My eyes widened. No, 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 no. The handle jerked again, harder this time. The metal hinges squealed. Something scraped along the seam of the door, probing for a weakness. A claw slipped into the gap, dragging downward. The screech of metal on metal was deafening inside the small space. I stumbled backward, gun trained on the door. Please stop, please, I whispered, voice shaking. The claw withdrew. Silence. I didn't trust it. My breathing was ragged, my mind tangled between fight and freeze. Running wasn't an option, it was right outside. But staying still felt like waiting to die. My headlamp flickered. I cursed under my breath and smacked the side, but the battery icon blinked red. A cold wave of terror washed over me. Without light, I'd have no way of seeing where it moved, what angle it approached from, when it breached the shed. I rummaged through my pack with frantic hands, extra batteries, spare flashlight, emergency flare. The flare. I grabbed it. Outside, snow crunched again, closer than before. The creature's shadow crossed the narrow window, blotting out what little moonlight seeped in. My breathing stopped entirely as I crouched, flare in one hand, Glock in the other. Then the creature pressed its face to the window. I didn't see all of it, just one amber eye filling the square of glass, unblinking, burning with curiosity and something colder underneath. Its breath fogged the pane, spreading like spider webs across the surface. I clenched the flare so tightly my knuckles cracked. The creature stayed there for several agonizing seconds, watching me like I was something trapped in a jar. Then it stepped back into the darkness. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. 20. The footsteps started again, but retreating, moving toward the tree line this time. The sound grew fainter until all I heard was the faint rustle of wind returning to the forest. Hope flickered, cold, fragile, foolish. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours, letting myself sink to my knees. Every muscle trembled. My lungs burned from held breath. The flare slipped from my fingers and clattered softly on the floor. But the relief lasted only a moment. Because through the thin metal wall behind me, I heard one long, low breath. Who? It wasn't gone. It was waiting. That breath froze everything inside me. My blood, my thoughts, even the shallow air in my lungs, it all locked in place. I didn't move. Couldn't. The sound had come from directly behind the wall, barely inches from where I knelt on the cold concrete floor. It wasn't loud. That somehow made it worse. It was slow, deliberate, almost patient. Like it knew I was waiting inside and wanted me to feel its presence. My throat tightened until swallowing hurt. I forced myself to stand, every muscle trembling with adrenaline and exhaustion. The Glock felt like it weighed 10 pounds now. My fingers ached from gripping it too tight for too long. My breath came in shallow, uneven pulls that fogged the air in front of me. Not here, I whispered to myself. I can't die in here. Not like this. I grabbed the flare again, fingers fumbling with the cap. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped it. The creature took another step outside, the crunch of snow unmistakable, slow, unhurried, tracking my movement inside the shed. My only options were all terrible. Stay inside and hope the walls held? Impossible. Run the moment it made a mistake? Also impossible, I could barely feel my legs. Fight? That was suicide. But I had one small advantage left. Light. Fire. The flare. I took a slow breath, bracing myself. Then another noise came, this one different. A heavy thud on the wall beside the door, hard enough to make the entire structure vibrate. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The creature struck the wall again, this time dragging its claws down the metal, a long, shrill scrape that pierced straight through me. It was done testing. It wanted in. No, 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 I whispered, stepping backward. The door handle jolted violently. The metal buckled inward under the force of something massive slamming against it. A crack formed near the hinge. The creature hit the door again, harder this time. The shed groaned like it was ready to split open. I didn't think anymore. I reacted. I yanked the flare cap, struck it once, nothing. Twice, the tip hissed. On the third strike, it ignited with a bright, furious roar, spitting red sparks that filled the shed with violent light and shadows. The creature outside reacted instantly. A deep, guttural snarl ripped through the air, angry, surprised. Another slam hit the door, but this time the creature didn't push through. Instead, I heard it take several quick steps back, almost instinctively avoiding the flare's burning glow. I swallowed a breath that shook my entire body and moved toward the rear exit, the small service hatch used by maintenance workers. I'd forgotten it was there earlier in the panic, but now it was my only chance. The creature was fixated on the main door. If I moved fast enough, maybe I could slip out and reach the truck again. I kicked aside a toolbox and crouched by the hatch, flare clutched tight in one hand, Glock in the other. The metal latch was stiff. Frozen. My fingers slipped once, twice. I bit back a curse and forced it open. Cold air rushed in. Fresh snow. Pine. Silence. I pushed the hatch open just enough to slip through. The moment my boots touched the ground outside, the entire forest shifted. The air felt wrong again, too still, too cold, too thick with anticipation. I held the flare low, its red light casting crooked shadows across the snow. I scanned the tree line. Nothing on the left. Nothing on the right. Then, snow crunched loudly behind the shed. The creature had realized I'd moved. I bolted. My legs felt like wet rope beneath me, but adrenaline forced them forward. The flare's smoke trailed behind me, leaving a bright red streak in the frozen air. My breath ripped out in fast, icy bursts. The truck was only 40 feet away, a straight run across open ground. But 40 feet might as well have been 40 miles. A heavy thump shook the snow behind me, then another. The creature was moving fast now. No more pacing. No more silent steps. This was different. This was pursuit. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see how close it was. My lungs burned. My throat tightened. My legs threatened to buckle. 20 feet left. The creature let out a howl, not the howl of a wolf, but something deep, jagged, and furious. The kind of sound a predator makes when the kill is seconds away. I reached the truck door, grabbed the handle, locked. I cursed, fumbling for the keys with numb fingers. The creature's footsteps grew impossibly loud. Snow sprayed behind me as it closed in. I hit the unlock button. The headlights flashed once. I yanked the door open just as something massive swept past me. The creature didn't hesitate this time, it lunged straight for me. I ducked into the cab, lifted the flare, and jabbed it outward. The creature's face filled the doorframe, teeth bared, saliva spraying from its snarl, eyes burning amber in the red flare light. Its breath rolled over me in a wave of rotten heat. It reached in with one enormous hand, claws slicing across the seat fabric as it tried to grab me. I shoved the flare into its face. The reaction was instant. It reared back with a roar so powerful it rattled the truck windows, clawing at the burned patch of fur smoking near its jawline. The moment its hand retreated, I slammed the door shut and locked it. The creature crashed against the truck again, harder than before. The entire frame shook. Metal groaned. The roof dented under the force of its strike. I jammed the key into the ignition and twisted. The engine sputtered. Coughed. Come on, come on. The creature slammed into the driver's side window. Cracks spider-webbed across the glass. I twisted the key again. The engine roared to life. Headlights blazed across the snow just as the creature crouched low beside the truck, muscles coiled to strike again. I slammed the accelerator. The tires spun for a second, skidding on the ice. Then they caught. The truck shot forward, flinging snow and gravel. The creature lunged, its claws scraping a violent arc across the rear panel but missing the window. The forest blurred past in streaks of white and black. My lungs heaved. My hands trembled uncontrollably. The flare rolled across the passenger seat, still hissing red against the darkness. The creature didn't follow at first. Not on the road. But I could feel it tracking me, moving through the trees, parallel, waiting for the next stretch where the road narrowed again. Waiting for the next chance. Because this wasn't escape. This was survival by inches. Every second I stayed ahead of it was borrowed time. And every breath I took felt like one it wanted to take from me. I didn't stop driving. Not for a second. Not until the forest thinned again and the mountains opened into moonlit ridges. Only then did I realize I was still shaking, still bleeding from my shoulder, still gripping the wheel so tight my hands were numb. And the worst part? I knew it wasn't over. Not until sunrise. If sunrise came at all. I didn't make it back to town that night. I should have kept driving all the way to Livingston, straight into the sheriff's parking lot, but shock had sunk its claws deep into me. Every muscle felt drained, like my body had burned through every ounce of adrenaline it had left. My vision kept blurring at the edges. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. The cut on my shoulder pulsed with every heartbeat, hot and sharp beneath my jacket. I managed to reach the Chico Hot Springs turnoff, headlights cutting across empty lots and quiet cabins. I pulled into the lodge parking area and practically fell out of the truck. A couple walking back from the pool froze when they saw the blood on my sleeve, the trembling in my legs. "Sir, hey, are you all right?" the man called, rushing toward me. I wanted to tell him to stay back, to get inside, to lock every door. But all I managed was, call the sheriff. Please. My voice cracked. My knees buckled. That's the last thing I remember before everything went dark. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed in Livingston. Sterile lights overhead. Heart monitor beeping steadily. My shoulder wrapped tight with gauze. The smell of disinfectant cutting through the lingering musk of fear still stuck in my nose. A nurse leaned over me when she saw my eyes open. "You're lucky you didn't lose more blood," she said gently. "You were hypothermic and in shock when they brought you in." I croaked out a single question, "My truck?" She frowned slightly. "Sheriff's department took it for inspection. They'll want to talk to you." And they did. 2 deputies and Ranger Supervisor Halvorsen walked in less than an hour later. Halvorsen looked pale, worried. The deputies looked skeptical. "What happened out there, Evan?" Halvorsen asked, pulling up a chair. I told them everything. The elk carcass. The tracks. The eyes. The chase. The shed. The creature. Every detail. My voice wavered, cracked, but I didn't leave anything out. I knew how it sounded. I knew their expressions were going to change the moment I said the words "standing on 2 legs." They did. The younger deputy raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying it was, what? A wolf man? A bear walking upright?" I clenched my jaw. I know what bears look like. This wasn't a bear. He tapped his pen impatiently. Large predators can behave erratically when sick. Sick animals don't track you for a mile, I snapped. They don't shrug off gunshots. They don't try to open doors. Halvorsen lifted a hand to calm us. "Let's focus on the evidence. We'll know more when we inspect the site." And that was how, 3 hours after sunrise, I ended up back in the truck, my truck, with Halvorsen driving, the deputies following behind, and me sitting rigid in the passenger seat. The blood on the seat had dried. The claw gouges in the rear panel glistened faintly in the light. The glass on the back window showed thin fractures where something had dragged its nails across it. It was real. All of it. I wasn't insane. At the shed, daylight revealed what darkness hid. The side of the building was carved with long, deep gouges, 4 at a time, evenly spaced. Each claw mark was nearly 2 inches deep in the metal. The door was buckled inward, hinges warped as if something had tried to peel it open. The snow outside was a mess of footprints, but the largest one stood out clearly. The deputies walked around slowly, measuring, photographing. Halvorsen crouched next to the tracks, running a gloved hand along the edges. 14 inches, 5 toes, but not a bare paw. Too narrow. And the stride length, 6 feet. He looked up at me, his face drained of color. There's nothing in Montana that leaves prints like this. The younger deputy tried to regain control of the situation. Could be a hoax. Someone messing with you. Big fake prints, some metal claws. I gestured at the shattered tree branches. You think a prankster bent a 6-inch lodgepole pine with their bare hands? Look at the drag marks. Something hauled a full-grown elk through here. The older deputy found the hair. It clung to a jagged corner of the shed, caught where the creature had scraped against it. Thick. Coarse. Gray-black with pale tips. Not bear fur. Not wolf fur. Something else entirely. He placed it carefully in an evidence bag, but his expression had changed. He didn't say it, but he no longer thought I was lying. Let's check the elk carcass, Halvorsen said. We followed the drag trail, clear as a road carved into the fresh snow. 30 feet. 50. 100. Eventually, just at the edge of a shallow ravine, we found what was left of it. The carcass lay twisted, ribs exposed, spine half-snapped. Massive bite marks ringed the neck and shoulders, too large for any wolf pack, too narrow for any bear. The flesh was torn, not clawed. Teeth had done this. The deputies stared silently, their skepticism bleeding into something else, unease. This is irregular, the younger one muttered weakly. Try impossible, I said. For a moment, none of us spoke. Even the forest remained strangely quiet, as if whatever had stalked me the night before was still close enough to make everything hold its breath. Halvorsen finally straightened. I'll file the report. But the official statement will blame a bear. I expected that. I knew how these things worked. But it still hit like a punch to the gut. A bear. I said. You saw the prints. The claw marks. The door. The public doesn't need panic, he replied. And we don't have the authority to claim anything beyond known wildlife. I looked away, jaw tight. They had evidence that something unknown, something dangerous was out here, and bureaucracy was about to bury it. After the deputies finished, they returned to Livingston. Halvorsen drove me back, promising to handle the paperwork and advising me to take the week off. I nodded, numb. But I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw its face filling the shed window. I heard its breath sliding through the wall. I felt the truck tilt under its weight. My brain replayed every second, every detail, every sound. I kept the Glock on my nightstand. My boots by the door. A flashlight in my hand even while lying on my couch. My nerves were shot. Every creak of my house made me jump. Every passing truck outside made my heart seize. In the days that followed, I tried to research anything that resembled what I'd seen. I found stories, old ones, about upright wolves, the hound of the basin, the gray stalker, the ridgeback. Accounts from hunters, hikers, even ranchers whispering about something that wasn't supposed to exist. It had been seen before. Maybe dozens of times. But no one reported it officially. No one wanted to be labeled crazy. And the few who did speak up were dismissed, just as the deputies had dismissed me. But the worst part wasn't the disbelief. It was the realization that the creature wasn't passing through. There were reports stretching back decades. Different years. Different seasons. Same area. Same behavior. And now it knew me. It had looked directly into my eyes. It had tracked me. Followed me. Tested me. It had chosen not to kill me when it had the chance. That thought festered in my mind as I sat awake night after night. It didn't let me go. It let me live. Which meant it could come back. Anytime it wanted. And I don't think I'll ever understand why. It's been months since that night in Tom Minor Basin, but I can still taste the cold metal of fear in the back of my throat every time I think about it. People talk about trauma like it's something that fades with time, something you learn to box up and shove onto a high shelf. Maybe for some things that's true. But not for this. Not for the thing that hunted me across the snow, stood on my truck bed like a nightmare made of muscle and teeth, and pressed its face to the shed window as if it wanted to crawl through the glass. I don't go back to the basin anymore. I transferred off field patrol entirely. I told the department it was because of the injury, the stress, the paperwork. But the real reason is simpler. I can't be alone in the woods after dark. Not in those woods. Not anywhere near that valley. At first, I thought the fear would loosen its grip once I got home, once the lights were on and the doors were locked. But the nights were the worst. Every time the house settled or a branch hit the siding, my heart slammed into my ribs hard enough to make my vision pulse. I started sleeping with the Glock on the nightstand, the headlamp beside it, and a flare in my kitchen drawer. For weeks, I couldn't walk across my own yard without scanning the tree line. People around me saw the change. My sister offered to let me stay with her in Bozeman for a while. My co-workers told me to take as much time off as I needed. My supervisor insisted I talk to a therapist. And I did, once. But how do you tell someone that you saw something that isn't supposed to exist? How do you convince them the shaking in your voice isn't from exaggeration but from remembering exactly how hot its breath felt through the shed wall? The therapist listened politely, took notes, asked questions that didn't reach the truth. I never went back. A few weeks after returning home, I drove past the Tom Miner turnoff just to see if I could do it. My palms started sweating before I even got close. My chest tightened. I felt that same unnatural pressure in the air, the same stillness I'd felt before the creature revealed itself. It wasn't real, I told myself. Just memory playing tricks. But when I passed the entrance sign, my headlights caught something in the snow near the ditch. Tracks. Long, deep. 5-toed. Not fresh, but not old either. I didn't stop. I didn't slow down. I drove all the way to Bozeman and sat in a gas station parking lot for an hour, shaking until my body finally let me breathe normally again. That should have been the end of it. I should have avoided the area completely. But curiosity is a poison. A slow, seeping venom that whispers, maybe you didn't really see what you think you saw. Maybe you need proof. Maybe you're losing your mind. So I did the worst thing I could have done. I started researching again. This time, not for stories or legends, but for anyone who might have seen what I did. And they were out there. A rancher in 1997 who claimed something walked on 2 legs along his fence line and left prints deeper than a bull's. A bow hunter in 2009 who swore he saw a wolf-headed thing watching him from the ridge. A hiker in 2015 who heard something breathing like a bear but walking like a man. All dismissed. All ridiculed. All describing the same impossible creature. When I reached out to one of them, a retired guide from Gardner, he didn't laugh. He didn't question me. He just asked one thing. Did it let you walk away? When I said yes, he went quiet for a long time before responding. Then don't go back. Don't ever go back. Once it knows you, it doesn't forget. I haven't stopped thinking about that sentence. Not once. Because over the past 2 months, strange things have started happening again, not in the basin, but in town. Little things. Almost nothing. Almost easy to dismiss. A neighbor's dog refusing to go outside at night. Coyotes going silent all at once for no clear reason. Large prints found behind an empty barn after a snowstorm. Rumors of livestock mutilation north of the Yellowstone River. I tried to convince myself these were coincidences. Natural predators. Misidentifications. Winter behavior patterns. But then, 3 weeks ago, something hit the siding of my house after midnight. Not a branch. Not snow sliding off the roof. It was too heavy, too deliberate. It rattled the picture frames on the wall. And when I stepped outside the next morning, shotgun in hand, I saw a single deep scratch in the wood, 4 grooves, evenly spaced. Almost identical to the gouges on the shed. I haven't slept a full night since. People think monsters live only in forests, in abandoned cabins, in darkness far away from towns and neighborhoods. But predators go where they want. They cross rivers, highways, roads. They don't care about boundaries humans draw on maps. The thing I encountered didn't just live in the basin. It passed through. Maybe it still does. I haven't told anyone about the scratch on my house. Not Halvorsen. Not the deputies. Not my family. What would I say? That the creature followed me home? That it stood close enough to smell the paint on my siding? That I'm terrified every time I open my blinds and see the tree line 50 yards away? I don't let friends visit after dark anymore. I keep the porch light on every night. I've reinforced the doors. I've installed security cameras, though part of me is terrified of what those cameras might capture. A week ago, just after 2 a.m., I woke up drenched in sweat. Something had pulled me from sleep, not a noise I remembered, just an overwhelming sense of being watched. I lay still, holding my breath, listening. My heart pounded in my ears. Then I heard it. A single, slow step in the snow outside my window. Not a full stride. Not the shuffle of a deer. Just one careful shift of weight. Like something was standing still, inches from the wall, adjusting its position. I didn't move for nearly half an hour. When I finally found the courage to get up, shotgun in hand, and flick on the outside floodlights, the yard burst into pale light. Nothing moved. But the snow below the window was disturbed. A single impression. Long deep. 4 claw marks. After that, I stopped pretending this was something I could outrun by staying indoors and keeping lights on. The truth is simpler and far more horrifying. Once you've been hunted by something that shouldn't exist, your world never goes back to normal. I'm not telling this story for attention. I'm telling it because something is happening in that basin, something people need to understand before they wander into those woods thinking they're safe. If you plan on camping anywhere near Tom Minor, don't. If you think you hear something walking on 2 legs in the dark, trust your instincts. If the forest goes silent all at once, if you smell wet fur and rot thick in the air, if you see prints longer than your boot, leave. Immediately. Don't look back. Don't investigate. Don't convince yourself you're imagining things. Because I wasn't imagining the creature that hunted me. I wasn't imagining the sound of its breath through the shed wall. I wasn't imagining its face framed in the window or the weight of its footsteps pacing the roof. And I know, without a doubt, that I didn't imagine the impression left outside my bedroom window. Whatever it is, it's still out there. Watching. Moving. Learning. Waiting. Some things in these mountains aren't meant to be understood. Only survived. And as long as that thing remembers me, and I know it does, part of me will always be back in those woods, running for my life through the snow with its breath on my neck. I wasn't alone that night. And I'm not convinced I am now.